Good afternoon. Welcome to the January Michigan Coalition Against Homelessness Legislative Action Committee meeting. So glad you're with us today and Happy New Year, everyone. It's really nice to see everyone and have a chance to talk together about what's going on this year. And let me ask everyone, please, to, if you wouldn't mind, if you could mute your sound, that would be best for sound quality for everyone. Thank you. And I'm Lisa Chapman, and we have a couple speakers today, including Eric Hufnagel, our CEO, as well as Jason Weller. So let's get to our agenda today. And this is our mission. MICA serves as an inclusive voice to improve systems and support communities. We're focused on ending homelessness and increasing housing in a way that leaves no one behind. So today we're going to cover some federal updates that hopefully Eric has for us. We have a few state updates and a little crystal ball work that we'll do to kind of preview what's coming up in 2024. Jason Weller is going to join us to talk about the campaign to end homelessness letter with budget priorities to the governor's executive office. I'm going to show you a little bit about what we've been working on for our updated policy priorities for this coming year. A few updates from us, and then want to hear what's going on in your field and things in your community, things that you're focused on, anything that is bubbling up for you. So thanks for everyone for introducing yourself in the chat. Just lovely to see everyone. Just want to mention also, do not worry. Don't try to, stress if you're not able to catch all the links in the chat. We will be sending you out the slides and document or an email with all the links that we've been sharing, so you'll have it handy all in one place. So don't worry about that. And now I'm hoping that Eric is on. Eric, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
All right, I will turn it over to you to talk about some federal things.
Super. Thank you, Lisa. Hello, everybody, and Happy New Year. My apologies for my rough voice. I've returned back to work after the holiday break and caught myself a cold, so perfect timing. Well, let's talk about the budget. We've been giving you updates over the last several months about what's been happening for the fiscal year 24 budget. We are in crunch time. For those of you who recall, the continuing resolution that was put in place extends through January 19th. So there is a little time here to actually come up with the final negotiation. So just want to walk through kind of where we are without spending too much time on it. But members of Congress did come back from their holiday recess. And while they were off, there was leadership that was working on a few things. And what we do know is that the House and the Senate had different budget versions. And so they have to reconcile those differences, which were actually pretty wide gap between the two. They need to have something in place before January 19th, or risk a partial governmental shutdown, which would be pretty darn scary. So congressional leaders were working over the break, and they did come up with a package that is now being discussed. But the package really is looking at expanding and reforming the low-income housing tax credit. Can we go to the next slide, please? I seem to have cut that off. Okay, so let me see if I can pick up here because something is cut off. Yeah, so the three options that Congress does have based on the tentative deal that has been worked out is that they can. Sorry, can we advance again or go back? Something slipped ahead. There we go. Thank you. Yeah, we're jumping around here. Can I go back to the previous page that was just up there? There we go. Stop there. Okay. It's a wild ride, testing my attention span. So there are some things that can happen. They can either finalize the spending bill based on whatever negotiations take place, or they can pass another continuing resolution, which is another scary thought, or they can just say, hey, we're not going to take any action here. They're going to face the partial shutdown of the government. So those are three things that are all feasible. So we need to be advocating to get the deal done. When we think about the annual continuing resolution, which is an option, that would certainly limit HUD's ability to serve people with the lowest income. So what we do know is that that would drastically impact every time that there is a continuing resolution. There's no increase. Basically, you're holding the budget steady. We do know that that then does not keep up with inflation. So when we think about vouchers, we know that there will be fewer people served when there's the same amount of money from year to year, because those costs do increase every year. So fewer and fewer people served. Next slide. Thank you. So one of the things that they did take action on, which is very helpful, is that they agreed in principle to spending levels, which you need to have in place. So they have to be in agreement as to what those spending levels will be before they can actually start looking at those individual bills and setting up the line-by-line funding for each agency. So that is a hurdle that they have cleared, which is good news. It includes spending caps for defense and domestic programs, and it suspends the debt limit until 2025, so we dodge another bullet there. But it does have some concessions that House Republicans wanted to restrict some spending. Next slide, please. So just to let you know where that is at, the agreement would take $16 billion in cuts from the proposed budgets. It's significantly more of a cut out of what the Senate had proposed, but it's $16 billion out of the House's version. It speeds up $20 billion in cuts that were already in place for the Internal Revenue Service. And it also basically is clawing back on $6 billion in COVID relief funding that had been approved but hadn't been spent yet. So it's just saying that it's not going to be available anymore for COVID use, and we're going to bring that back in and not spend it. So House Speaker Johnson, boy, can we go ahead to the next slide? Somehow pieces have moved around in my slides. Okay, I'm sorry for this being disjointed, but the slides are a little hinky to me here, not the way I put them together. So stuff has to happen before January 19th. We're just asking everybody to follow up with their members of Congress. Again, we've been doing that for the last several meetings, where we're asking to continue to put that pressure on. So there is movement here. What we don't want to see happen is a lack of commitment to funding HUD at the level that it should be. We don't want to see that get chopped. So here are some of the elements within that budget. We've been sharing this in the past, the things that we think are really vital that you could touch on when you're talking to your member of Congress, to make sure that they ensure the maximum amount of funding for each of those particular areas. Next slide, please. So another thing that the deal does provide is key reforms to low-income housing tax credit. I wanted to mention that as well. When we think in terms of affordable housing being developed, the largest single source of federal funding is low-income housing tax credit. And so there is the tax legislation that will be part of this deal. And so this would provide additional funding to build additional units of housing. I believe 3,000 units of housing across the country. Next slide. Boy, I'm really feeling like we're jumbled up here. So call your members of Congress. Here's some additional information from NLIHC, their Action Center, if you want to continue to get involved with different types of advocacy. Their organizational sign-on letters, for those of you who have not participated in that, you have the ability to do that. But then there's information for your individual advocacy. But we are asking you to please get involved with it. The reason is not just that we want to see the budget bolstered for HUD. but there is this reality that the House Speaker could push for a postponement of action until April. If that were to take effect, it would trigger some automatic cuts, which is the real danger that we have here. If there's inaction or a lack of commitment to getting this done and it's just punted down the road, that would be a success for some on one side of the aisle, the extreme members who would love to see additional cuts taking place that could be activated, and they could hide behind that and saying, well, hey, it's something that was built into the budget process, and we had no control over that. It was automatic. So please make those calls, send emails to talk about the HUD budget to make sure that it's elevated in their priorities as they're thinking in terms of the budget as it gets negotiated going forward. So next slide, just want to point out that the National Low Income Housing Coalition is having a housing policy forum. It's a great opportunity to get engaged, learn more about what's going on. Great conference, really. I would recommend it to anybody that is inclined to go to it. I know they sell out relatively fast. It's coming up here in March. Please feel free to look at information about that. The reason I'm also bringing it up is because they do have a Capitol Day built into that. The third day is Capitol Hill Day, March 21st, as you see on the slide there on the right. And there's an opportunity for you to join us and other advocates as we take a lead in engaging with members of Congress. So it could be quite timely, especially if there is no action taken before April to get the new budget in place. We want to make sure that we're that voice going forward. So would strongly encourage you to think about doing that. And one thing that we also have had brought to our attention is that there is an opportunity for us to engage a little bit more with a member of Congress from Michigan who is looking at the Financial Services Committee chairmanship next year, and that would be Congressman Heisinger. So there's an opportunity for us to try to step up our engagement with him. We've had conversations or been in contact with CEDM, who also has indicated their willingness to step up their contact with him as well. But it would put us in a pretty good position if we're able to engage with him about the priorities with respect to housing and homeless services. So anybody from his district that would be able to go would certainly be encouraged to do that, to join us on those Capitol Hill Day visits. Enough said from me. Any questions anybody has?
We do have a question, Eric.
Yeah.
From Anna, who's asking about the limiting of housing choice vouchers is possibly leading to HUD's inactions on existing vouchers to intervene with unjust termination. I don't think so, Anna. I think this is more of a budget issue, potentially, you know, an appropriation thing. Eric, I don't know if you have a
Yeah, it's strictly a budget.
It was something that was brought up during the NLIHC, one of our last meetings of the year, and they were talking about decreasing the amount in circulation because, of course, they were increased during COVID. And it was a question I had brought up to them as, is it a possibility, because they're wanting to decrease the amount of vouchers that are out there, scaling back compared to the increase that was made during the COVID pandemic. So my question might not have made sense the way I typed it on my phone, but that was kind of where I was going with it.
Within that context, I didn't hear anything about that, but the reality is that, and there are slides, or excuse me, there are some links that we're going to drop in for you so you can actually take a look at it. But there was an analysis done of how many vouchers could be lost. It was 700,000 vouchers that could be lost. I mean, which is astronomical. So think about that impact. Unfortunately, we don't have it broken down by state. We've been able to get that information from NLHC in the past, where there's a kind of a breakdown so you can actually see the numbers that are projected per state. But you know, just kind of doing some general math.
I was just wondering your guys' opinion, just because I had posed it to them. It's like, well, HUD's not acting on something, but they're wanting to limit it. So it was just something I wanted to bring up.
Yeah.
But
no,
thank you.
The bottom line is trying to keep as many vouchers as possible and make sure that there's funding even to expand vouchers if at all possible. So that's what this is focused on. because once those are gone, it's really hard to backfill. It's hard to find additional funds in the future to build that up again. It's taken a long time to get to the level that we are. So it's a real threat. Anybody else have any other questions? Did I miss anything in chat? Okay, again, I really encourage you to do that. It doesn't take much time to reach out to a member of Congress or two, depending on, if your service area covers a larger area, multiple districts, but could be extremely impactful here. So we don't want to let up the throttle on this to make sure that we can maximize the funding for HUD. Thank you all.
Thanks, Eric. Go eat some hot soup now.
Thank you.
All right, a couple updates from me regarding state issues. As you may know, we talk about this every month. We have source of income protections legislation that passed the Senate last fall. The House has not taken it up yet. Ashley just floated a link for our sign-on letter. We are advocating for people to do outreach with their House member. We've also gotten some support from municipalities to sign the support letter there if they have source of income protections in their community or they think it would be a good idea statewide. We're really trying to ramp up advocacy for this legislation to pass. If it doesn't pass this calendar year, it will have to be reintroduced again. And this is the third time actually right now that it's the third session that it's been introduced in. So we would love to have it passed. And this is the furthest that we've gotten so far. Next slide, please. So just in terms of what's happening right now with the legislature, the Michigan House is currently tied at 54 members. There were two members that ran for governors, Rep. Lori Stone, who won in Warren, and Rep. Kevin Coleman, who won in Westland, and so they're now mayors, so they had to vacate their seats. So currently there's a tie, and so the conventional wisdom is that not much is going to be happening right now. There is a primary election in January and a final election on April 16th for those two seats. Until then, it doesn't look like much else is going to happen legislatively. Potentially bills that are seen as nonpartisan might pass, but not much else probably would be taken up. And I've also heard that there's a potential for canceling some of the legislative sessions. The legislature has been out for the holiday. Their first session is the 10th of this week, the 10th of January, and then they have a session scheduled the next couple weeks, but they could cancel them at any time. So we really don't know. What we're hearing is that most of the activity will take place between April after the election, the special election to restore those two House members, and August, because keep in mind, this is an election year and a lot of folks will be running for election, or just there's a lot of activity that happens in district during that time. So that's going to be really the focus. And just as a reminder, Representative Christian Grant was named the chair of the Housing Subcommittee in the House after Kevin Coleman left. So she is another person that we're trying to meet with to talk about some of the housing related legislation that we're hoping moves yet this year. Next slide, please. Just wanted to make sure that you are aware that the annual data report from the Campaign to End Homelessness was released in December. It is a fabulous report with a ton of information. I hope you will, take some time to look through it. We have a few highlights here. Unfortunately, our overall homeless number went up from 2021 to 2022 by 8% across the state. In different regions, it was higher or lower, so the report details that, as well as we saw a 37% increase statewide in evictions. Interestingly, 56% of homeless youth graduated in 4 years, as opposed to 81% of youth that were housed. So that's a huge disparity, as well as 43% of homeless veterans reported being homeless for the first time. So there's a lot of great information there. We are also doing a webinar to talk about how you can use this data and other data that's current for advocacy in your community. And that webinar is on January 31st. I believe, Amy, correct me, or somebody, I believe it's at 2:00.
And the information, Lisa, for it was in the recent newsletter that you all would have received with the invitation to this meeting. And it'll be sent out again after this meeting in our action alert, which kind of summarizes everything we've talked about. And just a quick note also, most of what we do, we ask you to register in advance. This is a direct link, the way Lisa had it set up. So you can just copy and paste it into your calendar. So yeah, the link for that went out last week, and then we'll put it again in our action alert piece so you have it.
Thank you. And Ashley just shared the information in the chat. It's at 3:00. So thank you for the update. All right, next slide. Now I'd like to invite Jason Weller to cover this item. Jason is the coordinator for the Campaign to End Homelessness. He is housed at MISHDA, but he works for the campaign, and he's going to talk about the letter to the governor's executive office with budget priorities for 2024 and 2025. Jason.
Thanks, Lisa. So yeah, as Lisa said, Jason Weller with the Campaign to End Homelessness. So the last couple of years, the campaign through the Interagency Council on Homelessness and the Homeless Policy Council, the two governing bodies of the campaign, have identified policy priorities to share with the governor's office as we're going through the state budget cycle. So what we have here are the high points from the ask for the governor's or for the budget priorities from the campaign for the fiscal year 24-25 budget. So there's a handful of things that have been carried over from previous years. There's also some new things, and for those of you that have been kind of paying attention to the COVID related assistance programs, you'll notice that we've have learned some things about community needs from those as well. So I'll kind of flag where different things are coming from. So at the top of the list, we have increased funding for supportive housing services. And of course, the letter goes into a bit more detail and provides a little bit of data about the background for the need. This is an ask that's been included in the letter for the last couple of years, and we've actually seen some success. I think it was 2 years ago, we got a $6 million annual allocation through DHHS for these supportive services as a pilot. So since that pilot, we're now leaning in and saying that what we need is even more funding so that we can have more robust services for our PSH programs across the state. Next up, we have established a gap financing fund for permanent supporting housing creation, and $20 million annually. And this is one of those projects that MISHDA just had for the first time last year, where we released some gap financing for developers who are doing PSH projects. It was wildly successful. So kind of learning from that success, trying to figure out if we could identify a funding source that would allow for that kind of funding to be available annually and not something that would be like a one-off, which is what last year was. And you'll notice there's a theme there between the creation of PSH and then the support for PSH. And that was very much intentional, recognizing that there's a very high demand or need for additional PSH units across the state. Next up, we have expansion of family emergency shelter services at $2.5 million annually. And that is pretty much what that's pretty straightforward. And that's coming from our friends at DHHS and looking to expand the ESP program. And then kind of in tandem with that, we have supplemental funding to support homeless shelter workforce at just under $5 million annually. So hopefully everybody on this call is aware that for the last little over 2 years, we've been partnered with an organization called C4 Innovations, recently renamed Arc for Justice. And they're a national organization that provides technical assistance around racial equity work. So over the last year and a half or so, they were engaged with a number of COCs across the state, doing some local strategic planning work. And then they've also been working at the state level as well, doing some strategic planning. And during their engagement with the local communities across the state, they were doing both quantitative and qualitative data collection. And during the qualitative data collection, they were talking with both frontline service providers, and they were talking with folks that lived experience of the homeless response system. And one of the things that came out during those conversations was the need for more support for shelter staff. Folks on the service receiving end were saying, they had a wide array of hiccups that they were running into, issues that they were running into, and it really depended on the service provider, the staff person, and the particular staff person, as to whether or not they felt like they were actually receiving quality services. And on the service provider side, I think we've known for a while that that some shelters across the state have been struggling with maintaining a steady workforce, and staff, and have been really struggling with staff retention. So we're seeing this as a response to that, that information that has kind of been bubbling up, and trying to put some more additional supports in place for our shelter providers, to ideally not only maintain, but then bring in new additional workers and be able to increase salaries to be competitive with the kind of the broader market. Next up, we have Create Emergency Shelter Program, Domestic Violence Youth Shelter Repair Grants. So again, this is something that I know DHHS has as a pilot with $10 million that has been available. They've made the allocations. I know they're in the process of implementation at this point, but they had far more applications than they had funding. I want to say that they got something like $70 million in requests for $10 million that was available. So recognizing that there is a far greater demand than supply in terms of this funding. So this is the second year that ask has been included. And then the last two items on the list really are in tandem. So recognize that there's a need for more robust tenant supports and protections. And last year, when there was the changeover in the control of the legislature, in the letter that we shared with the governor's office last year, kind of went all in. We included budget proposals, and then we also included some policy proposals. And really, in the policy proposals were really around the tenant protection. So we had like source of income and some of the things that, or I should say, almost all of the things that the MICA team has been working on. But what we're realizing with the end of SARA is that there is in fact a gap now. And while we know that it's next to impossible to be able to get that level of funding again, we're hoping that we could at least get something that would be able to fill that gap. So that's where the Emergency Rental Assistance Fund comes in. It's really a surrogate for the SARA program. And it would, really try to assist with staving off evictions. and create stability for folks that are precariously housed. So, so where can you find this? Where do things go from here? So if you haven't seen the chat yet, Lisa dropped in the chat that Micah will post this on their page. The campaign's in kind of a weird space with these letters. As I said, we've been doing them for the last couple of years, but because they're considered advocacy and because I work for MISTA, I can't share them on the MISTA website. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. So Lisa has graciously offered that Micah will post the letter on their website. So thank you, Micah and Lisa, for leading that charge. So what has happened the last couple of years is we've drafted a letter, shared it with our contacts at the governor's office. Last year in particular, as we were going through the process, we ended up, some representatives from the campaign ended up in meetings with some of the governor's staff to provide some points of clarity and kind of brainstorm, kind of see where we might be able to come up with additional funding sources for some of these things, if it wasn't necessarily in the governor's budget. So the letter has been shared with the governor's office at this point. I haven't heard anything additional as to if there's going to be a meeting, or if the governor's office is going to request a meeting this year. But we'll obviously keep folks informed as we find out more. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Amy. Yeah, that's right. I was going to say, I knew I saw this someplace. So yeah, as Amy said, it was also in the LAC email announcement that went out. You could download a copy of the letter. So I think I will stop there and see if folks have questions, thoughts, concerns. Angst and ennui is also welcome as we get into this new year.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi,
Thanks
Jason. Just a quick question clarifying. You said that C4 is working with MISTA?
So C4,
Or I know about C4 Innovations. I didn't know they just changed their name, but
yeah, so the name change came at the tail end of last year. So they're Arc for Justice. And yeah, the partnership so they've been partnered with the campaign.
partner, yeah.
But the funding for that project actually came from MISTA.
Okay.
And
what's the new name?
Arc for Justice.
Work for Justice?
Arc for Justice.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, and they haven't changed their team. It's the same team. So it's Regina and Lisa and Monique and Ronnie.
Okay.
Yeah, so nothing's changed. It's really just a matter of who we're writing our checks to.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that for me.
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome, man. Yeah, Trisha. And you're on mute before.
Yeah, sorry, thanks. So the organization, the racial equity organization that you said is doing all the work, it's called Art for Justice.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. And again, as I said, they were doing, we started our partnership with them. I'm going to screw the timeline up. I want to say 2022 because it's 2 years now. So I think January 2022 is when we started with them. And we started by, yes, thanks, Lisa. We started by recruiting COCs to partner with them to do kind of local level racial equity strategic planning work. And of the 20 COCs in the state, we had 18 partner with them in some capacity. So that local level work wound down, I want to say September, October of last year. And they now shifted towards providing guidance at that kind of state level racial equity strategic planning. And they're also looking at doing a pilot to replace the VI SPDAT, the assessment tool that's used. And they're also looking at providing a leadership academy for folks with lived experience, or the kind of where we're at for the work going into this year.
Oh, a leadership academy for people with lived experience?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and that leadership academy would take 2 prongs. It would be one focus would be for folks with lived experience themselves, who are looking for additional support about how to engage with like the homeless response system. So becoming a member of a COC board, or even getting a job at a service provider, kind of providing that foundation for them to feel comfortable making that leap. And on the flip side, there's going to be a track for agency folks or COC leadership, kind of briefing them for how to create a welcoming space for new voices as they come on board.
Awesome. Is this organization in anywhere near us in Lansing, or are they?
I wish. No,
No?
they're a national, their
Oh,
staff
they
are scattered
cover.
all over the country.
Okay.
So yeah, Connecticut, Georgia, I think
Right.
California. Yeah. I wish they were more local.
Me too.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Jason, thanks, Trisha. Yeah, Google them. Yeah, they have a lot of resources on their website.
Yes, they do. They have a very awesome website. All right, if there's no other questions, I think I'm done. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for that. That's great context. So Kim, I just put it, it's ARC, A-R-C for Justice. They are providing like technical assistance and training for the Leadership Academy for the Campaign to End Homelessness and the Michigan Homeless Policy Council. So just wanted to update you. We are updating our policy priorities for this year. These are the 2023 policy priorities, and you can see we had 4 areas. Thank you, Jason. 4 areas of focus, and I'm going to walk through each one of these quickly and show you what we are kind of looking at changing. So Amy, you can go to the next slide, please. So in terms of the area for increasing access to affordable housing, the first couple bullets, increasing supply, increasing funding for PSH, housing first strategy support, and enacting tenant protections are ones we already had. The ones in the italicized font are 2 that we're proposing to add. Assuring accessible, targeted, subsidized housing for seniors or elderly persons. That is based on some comments that we had from people like you, people from the field. People who are elderly are like the rising segment of the homeless population, one of the highest that has increased over recent times. So that is definitely a concern, as well as increasing youth housing options. It's really an issue for youth that they're not able to enter into a lease. A lot of them don't have income. A lot of them have, couch surf and aren't really, might not be literally homeless. So there's not a lot of options for them. So that's definitely something that we're looking at as well. Thank you, Tammy. It is definitely a concern. There's a lot of older adult rising homelessness, definitely. And if you look at the campaign report, you'll see that. Next slide, please. Appreciate all the partners on the call here. So the next one is reducing barriers and preserving and expanding income supports, criminal justice reform are 2 that are carrying over, and then reducing the incidence of criminalization of homelessness. We're seeing a lot of this both in Michigan and nationally, where municipalities are imposing fines and ordinances and sit-lie restrictions so people can't be in public spaces or have their possessions. We're also seeing hostile architecture being installed, where there are benches with, rigid, non-movable armrests so people can't lie down on a bench. We're also advocating for advancing tenant protections of all kinds. Some of the legislation that we have pending, as well as some that are being worked on, like eviction ceiling and expungement, and junk fees in rental housing is another one that is being proposed. And then fair chance access to housing is a piece of legislation that is pending right now that's been introduced, as well as providing funding for eviction prevention, which some of these you'll see echoed in the letter to the governor. So we're kind of being consistent in what we're recommending, as well as budget, but also policy priorities. So next slide, please. The next area is reducing racial disparities. as well as reducing, disparities and racial inequities. So reducing housing discrimination for people of color, for immigrants, for people with disabilities, as well as supporting a pending piece of legislation that would enact racial equity impact analysis for any legislation that covers or impacts social determinants of health. So those are two that we had last year, and we're continuing those for this year. So if you have any suggestions for us in this area, we'd love to hear it as we finalize these priorities. And then lastly, next slide, other supports, and you'll see that we've echoed again the letter to the governor advocating for funding for sheltering and shelter improvements, increased behavioral health supports for folks, and the two new ones that were draft recommendations that we're looking to finalize, increasing wages for shelter staff and increasing funding for shelter diversion activities. So if you have any suggestions or any comments, you can feel free to put them in chat right now, or if you want to raise your hand, or you can email me. We would love to hear from you. We also sent out an email today to our members to make sure that we're getting a full complement of thoughts as we look to finalize these. Yes, Anna.
I just wanted to share with you guys, as I've obviously been an advocating member with lived experiences with Micah. I'm on the Coalition for Expanding Housing Access, as well as advocating member of the Low Income Housing Coalition, but I may be returning to work sooner rather than later. Obviously, I'm an RN, and yeah, social determinants of health, we all know. I've shared my experiences along the way, and so I was just going to throw out there, with all of these new things happening, that any positions in which these areas, if anyone wants to throw my way, because obviously I'm going where my experience has led me on top of my career already. So yeah, I want to be part of the change, and I want my experience to be part of that change. So I just want to throw that out there, because we are doing great things, and I want to see our state change. So
thank
yeah.
you, Anna. And you've been such a great advocate, even with everything that you've been going through. We always need people with lived experience to kind of show the way and lead us. And here,
I'm definitely in a unique position with my career and behavioral health specialist. Yeah, but I couldn't have done it without you, Lisa, as well as the rest of the team and everybody. So
wonderful.
That's what we're all here for, right?
Exactly. So yes. And our new manager of authentic engagement, Aisha Wilson, I don't know if she's on today, but she is also working on advocating and including the voices of people with lived experience in many different ways, and resurrecting our speakers bureau. So a lot of exciting stuff going on. So glad that you're part of it, Anna. Next slide, please. So anything that we're missing around these policy priorities, any barriers that you see that we haven't listed, love to hear from you again. Next slide, Amy, please. And this is the time that we open up the floor to hear about anything that's going on in your community, any ordinances or policies or anything, any trends that you're seeing locally, or anything that you're planning on working on this year that you see as an issue. We'd love to hear from all of you, because I know there's a lot of you from all around the state on today. Anyone?
Well, I guess I'll throw that I've now been working with Congresswoman Schultz's office in this never-ending, fight for justice and to make things right. And so I'm grateful for her caseworker. And I saw Court and Cooperman joined on, and I'm grateful for her suggestion. And so, that's obviously prayerfully an ally that we will have and a relationship we will keep and work with as she finished her first year as Congresswoman. So, yeah, I'm
That's-
hoping that that relationship can be further built out beyond just assisting me, but
Right.
obviously the bigger picture. So,
Yeah, and we just keep widening the circle of advocacy, you know, congressionally, legislatively. So that's a wonderful relationship to cultivate for many reasons. And I did want to say that we have shared the letter that that Jason talked about from the campaign with some state legislators already. As I have additional engagement with folks, I will be sharing those. And you can feel free to share those with your legislator, that letter as well. So you can definitely use it throughout the year, and especially, you know, as we go into, you know, budget season. So thank you. Next slide, please.
Sorry, I had a comment when you get a second.
Sure, Lisa. Hi.
Hey, I just wanted to kind of bring to everyone's awareness. I work for Disability Network West Michigan Center for Independent Living. And at least in our area, there is a serious need for subsidized housing or permanent supportive housing for people with disabilities who are not necessarily seniors. We have quite a few, although there's still waiting lists, but we have like 3 to 6 month waiting list for senior for subsidized housing, whereas people with disabilities, some of them are up to 12-year waiting lists. So it used to be in the past that subsidized housing was for seniors or people with disabilities. But as of course, baby boomers and all that came up, there was such a need for senior housing that disability housing kind of went by the wayside. So I just kind of want to, in the general advocacy, point out that that's something we're seeing a lot of.
Great point, Lisa. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I mean, we're all temporarily able-bodied for a moment, and then, you know, you don't know what tomorrow brings. So we have, yeah, a need for all kinds, especially that that would be considered accessible, visitable, barrier-free, all of those.
Yeah.
Right?
That's even a further dream, but yeah,
Right.
but yeah, even just for, because people that who receive SSI, you know, supplemental security income, who have disabilities, pretty much have about between $900 and $1,000 a month to live on, and it's just really impossible to find something when regular apartments are going for $2,700 a month now.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when you're, you know, you're not supposed to spend more than 30% of your income towards your housing, right? So you have money for everything else. So yes, it's definitely a concern. So we can add that to our policy priorities.
That would be cool.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
All right. We are hosting a webinar that is focusing on supporting older adults who are experiencing housing insecurity on Monday, January 22nd at 3 o'clock. So here's the link for that training if you want to join on. You are welcome to do that. It is free and we'd love to have you. And it's part of our ongoing training series. And Amy, do you want to cover this one? Amy put together a fabulous report for 2023 that talks about MICA's achievements and goals. Okay.
Sure, thank you. And I apologize. My mouse today is like over caffeinated. I don't know if a setting got changed with the sensitivity, but I apologize. Yeah, good morning. I'll make it brief. This is our MICA impact report. We haven't done one in a while, and it was very much, as these projects often are, a team effort with my colleagues to help them really document all the great work they've done all year. I just wanted to get that more forward facing to the public because I don't think a lot of folks know. It was sent out like the week before the holiday, so you may have already seen it. It was in your most recent LAC communication, just to get it in front of you. And then I post it every so often on social media. So it's definitely out there. We tried to keep it brief with lots of photos and data and a combination with content. So At your convenience, just take a scroll through, and if there's any programs or projects that you would like more information or like to become involved in, just reach out to anyone within MICA or who's responsible for that program, and we'd love to have your assistance. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you, Amy. And it just came out so nice, just so visually appealing. So kudos to you, and thanks for pulling that all together for us. And it's also on our website. Next slide, please. And so, ta-da, we'd like to announce that you may have seen other dates. We finally landed on one that is a solid date. We are having our, I think it's our 8th annual Homelessness Advocacy Day on Tuesday, April 23rd. It's going to be at Lansing Community College. Registration is not out yet, so don't worry, you haven't missed anything. We are just putting the final details together. You know, it's a challenge with the legislature this year and the, you know, potential for not having sessions. So this is going to be really the week after that special election. So we're pretty confident that the session will happen, which means legislators will be in town, which means that they'll be available in Lansing to meet with you, which is the whole point of it. So we have a program in the morning. We invite a couple legislators to come and speak with us. We have teams that go and meet with their legislators, talk about our policy priorities that we're just finalizing. So we will do a webinar in advance, probably like 10 days or 2 weeks in advance, to give you all the talking points and get you all prepped. And then we will come together in person. So we're really excited to have this. I just want to say we only have about 150 spaces. So when the registration comes out, I encourage you to do it sooner rather than later. We had to cut it off last year because of space. So, you know, there's only so many chairs that we can put in a room. So we'd love to have you join us. And so look for it in your inbox pretty soon. Next slide, please. Another way you can connect with us, to follow us on social media. Amy does a great job of keeping us prominent in what we're doing and things that we're sharing. So you can follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and X, which used to be Twitter, right?
I need to update that logo, Lisa.
I
Thank
know,
you.
right?
I reviewed this template for January, and in my brain, it'll always be a bird. I completely missed that. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know what it is now. Is it an X? Big X? Anyway. So we just appreciate you because, you know, we are more powerful together, and your advocacy, sharing your voice and letting us know what's going on and helping amplify our message is super important. So we really appreciate you being here, and any action that you can take after the meeting to advocate is greatly appreciated. And with that, I think I will say thank you. So great to see everyone, and we look forward to seeing you. We will be back next month on our regular rotation, which is the first Monday of the month. And so in February, that would be the 5th. And we will look forward to seeing you then. Until then, have a great month.